everybody. This is Maggie Reese.
And I'm John McManamy.
We're back in the shack again.
We are back at the shack, and this is just a great shack. If I could only get the camera to move here. We've got a little stream out here with these beautiful wheaty looking stalks out there.
And there's fish, and sometimes we've got ducks that go by, and turtles. There's turtles that come out of the creek. So.
And there's a grapevine going on the other side here. And
yeah. I try to make wine, but so far it tastes like vinegar every time.
Hey, that's close enough. You can use it for cooking.
Yes.
But you've got a little piece of heaven on earth here.
I do. It's exciting because Matt and I for years lived in a tiny little house downtown, and before that we lived in Ocean Beach in a little rental. So it's been fun over the years to see where things will take us, and it's been nice.
Yeah, and so this is a great place to hang out and talk.
Yeah, all our stuff in the shack.
All our stuff in the shack. So we're there's just a lot of myths about bipolar out there. People think you got your bipolar shirt. They think because it's polar,
crazy.
Yeah, we go from one extreme to the other, as if there's no connection between the up and the down.
Right.
And
it's not like that.
It's not like that at all, because that's not the way we experience it. It's the simplistic way of explaining it to people, but if you try to base your recovery on that concept, you're going to run into obstacles.
Oh yeah. Or I get this kind of thing where people are like, oh, so do you get like really angry and yell all the time? I'm like, no, I really don't.
Yeah.
When I have an explosion, yes, it's like way off the norm, but it's not like
we
all
can
the
be,
time.
But we can also be normal when we're having the explosion. It's not always based on the bipolar.
No, it's not I would definitely say it's so not a black and white illness.
Right. In fact, okay, so I'll just hold up my book here, because I explain this in my book. I can't find my book, so...
right here. Right here.
Right here. Okay. So the title, Not Just Up and Down. So my point of view here is that bipolar is really a cycling illness. Okay, we cycle, our brains are in perpetual motion. Now, all nature cycles. We have seasonal cycles, and we evolved to be in sync with the seasons. So you can. So a lot of us experience winter depressions and spring manias, and that is part of our brains being wired to our caveman days. Now I can go into the nerd stuff, but I won't bore you with that. That'll be my 2-hour motion picture, right? Not our video. But the important thing is we cycle, and there's just a range of cycles. It's almost like a clockwork with little wheels spinning around. And I relate it to like we're juggling plates, and sometimes you have to reach too far from a plate and it crashes. So our cycles sometimes spin out of control. Our brains, even when we're depressed and we're feeling flat, our brains are in perpetual motion. So I relate in my book, okay, and you can probably relate to this too. We're heading out the door. We've got to go downtown. We've got to attend a meeting or go to work or whatever. I cannot just do it like normal people. I have to anticipate. If I'm leaving the house, say at 8 o'clock in the morning, I have to anticipate how I'm going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Because I may not be on my best mental game at 2 in mental. I may be feeling fine at 8 o'clock in the morning. 4 or 6 hours later, I may not be feeling so fine. By the time I head home, I may be too wrung out to even buy groceries.
Oh yeah.
Even though there's no food in the fridge, I will not stop for the groceries. And so the important thing is I have to anticipate this. And the only way conceptually I can anticipate this is if I think of my brain as cycling. And sometimes there's more than one cycle going on. So it's not just depression and mania I have to worry about. I regard normal as an episode, and there's so many facets to normal. So maybe we can just take it from there, okay?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I can relate to everything that you just said. Oh my gosh, like where you're waking up, you're maybe like 10 o'clock in the day, I'm feeling so great, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got that dinner or whatever, but by the time I get to that 5 o'clock dinner, I am done.
Right.
There is just nothing going to happen there.
So we're having to predict the future in many ways.
Yes. Yes.
And
And that's exhausting right there. Don't you feel that's exhausting though? Like when you're always having to.
This is this is the extra burden, you know,
Yeah.
because you know, it's fine giving us medication, but even in medication, we're going to be cycling, and it's okay to experience a full range of emotions.
Yeah.
And everybody also cycles. You know, it's part of nature.
us,
You know,
yeah.
you know, normal people will talk about how they just feel kind of brain dead after lunch.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, and more sensible countries, they take siestas at that time. You know,
Yeah.
they're more in tune with their cycles. This is the sleep.
And then their productivity starts up again
then
in the
they
afternoon.
then they surge,
Mhm.
and
Then
then
they're done.
they're done. Yeah, yeah, and then they'll have a very, very late supper, and they're
Yeah, it's like Spain.
like Spain. Yeah, but it's just a more sensible way to. And our lives aren't regulated this way, and we find ourselves out of sync.
Yeah.
And that's where we get into big trouble, because we think, oh, we're not normal, there's something wrong with us. No, there's nothing wrong with us. Nature built us to be this way. We're slightly more amplified forms of this.
Yes. Yes.
Now, the people who can adapt to it, they're adapting to something that's not normal. So please don't feel there's anything wrong with you where you're feeling problems. It's just that sometimes we have to make adjustments in our life. Sometimes it means, okay, we're not going to have that go-getter job.
Right.
That
Yeah,
was all-
and I realized that in my own life. Like,
Right.
I cannot do the 9 to 5 thing. It's just not going to
I
work
can't
out.
do it either.
A couple years ago, I went back and worked at the salon again, and I'm belting out work all day long for a year and a half, just like a machine. I just burned right out, you know? It's
Right.
just, I'm just not meant to do that, and I thought I failed again as a person, but I
Yep.
really
Yeah,
didn't
we
fail.
beat ourselves up.
We beat ourselves up, and I'm realizing more and more, Maggie, just embrace the seasons that come to you, whether I'm doing the furniture at the time, or I'm doing videos, or I'm out in my grapes, or whatever it is,
Right.
but I'm never going to fit into that 9 to 5
I can't.
world.
This is why I work from home.
Right,
I
you and I are
write,
similar that way.
and it means I have to live financially on the edge a lot of
Yes.
times, and that is part of the price I pay for maintaining a healthy mind and living living a life that's meaningful to me. Because in my next book I'm going to relate how I flipped into a mania, and this was working in a newsroom as a journalist in Australia. And I'd been in journalism about 6 or 7 years at this time, but I'd been mostly in an office, in higher editorial positions, and I was managing things. Now I was kind of like a street journalist, and this was high intensity. Get out and socially.
Yeah. Get your material and
Get my
write it.
material, write the stories, and write them to very tight deadlines.
Yeah.
And
Which produces all the stress.
produces the stress, and I was doing a brilliant job, mind you. Okay, I even published a book in Australia based on the stories I produced. But I was losing sleep, and I was out of cycle with what was going on. I wasn't taking my breaks. I was producing a ton of work. I was traveling all over the place, out of my time zone, out of my element. And
You're setting yourself up for like the perfect storm.
I set myself, and guess what? The perfect storm happened. I haven't worked a day at a regular job since.
Right.
What I managed eventually was to work on my schedule.
Right.
So it meant I wasn't saving up for retirement and everything, but
Right.
I was living,
Right.
Right.
I think that's where I'm realizing for
Yeah.
myself, just not working for others is the best for me, and just working what little things I do is fine, and not worrying about this big job or this big career, because a lot of times as bipolar people, we want to have this big
we have big visions.
big
too.
visions, big success. Like my brain just goes out of control of these high places, and then I feel like I'm a failure.
Oh,
because I
look,
don't
look,
get
and
to
I
that.
I graduated with an honors degree from law school, and I really was good as a journalist. So yeah, in theory, I had this brilliant career laid out for me, but it can't happen with the brain.
Right.
That brain can come up with brilliant ideas and stuff, but it has to do it according to its cycles and
Right.
its times on its terms. And we have to live. We have to learn to live with that, and we can live successful lives
For
with
sure.
that. But we have to acknowledge the realities.
Right, and if you don't acknowledge the realities, don't you think that that's when we see the trouble happen with like episode after episode after
Yes,
episode,
yes,
right?
yeah.
And
We're
it's like-
living in denial.
Yes, and I've seen that with a lot of people that I've come into contact with, and they still have their big job afterwards, but then a few years go by, and then they go boom, another big one happens, and then they're trying to
Oh.
scramble and recover from that, and it's exhausting. And-
Well, you know that's where the sad stories come in. You know,
Right.
because I've seen in support groups.
yes,
You know, when that kind of financial rug is ripped out from under you like that, people have been living a secure life, you know, doing their jobs, and then it's too much for them. They get their depression and stuff, and they don't come back to their, you know, they're not welcome back in that world again, and then they're destitute, and now their total life has got to
Right.
change. They haven't figured out how to.
like the survival skills are just
They haven't figured out the skills to work from home, and I would find it so distressing. I would say to people, well, can you learn to start a business from your own home? And it would be going through one ear and out the other because
Right.
it wasn't in their mindset. So, you know, so it's like they physically in their brain may have recovered, but they're never going to get back.
right.
And that causes more distress, and it just keeps
That cycle
the
going.
illness going and the cycles, because now, you know, their brains have much more to churn about.
Oh, for sure. And what about, is there other myths that are out there that,
Yeah,
Right.
normal is not normal. Okay, okay, that's a big one. You know, we take normal for granted, but what is normal? Like, we got to put our philosopher cap on.
right,
You know, and you know, when I first was aware of my illness, I went online, and you know, somebody in a talk group said, "Well, you know, normal is a setting on a washing machine," and it was like, "Ah, thank you. That's very good advice." You know, and you know, when you analyze that further, you know, there's no normal, but you know, our doctors mistake normal for you know, what they think is normal. So. You know, if they are, you know, if they think thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is normal, and we're
Right.
thinking 1, 2, 28, 69, 70, and this is like the more creative, nonlinear mind,
right,
and they're okay. So once I was addressing a group of psychiatrists and said, well, look, a lot of us, you know, are very successful, you know, business, creative, and we don't want to be like you, and they looked at me, you know, in that Mel Brooks movie, Springtime for Hitler, where the audience is like this, you know, like,
Right.
what do you mean you don't want to be like us?
right, right.
And if I'd had my wits about me, I would have thrown my prepared talk aside and said, well, let's talk about this,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
because my normal really is not your normal. I've got to find comfort in my normal. So if you want to help me recover, you've got to be on my wavelength, get me to my sense of normal.
And that takes a long process to those to those of you that are just experiencing that you're just finding out bipolar, like
Right.
to figure out your state of normal.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that's a long process?
That's a long process.
I mean-
we have to know ourselves, know thyself.
Yes.
Normal, you know, it can be, you know, this is the center of who we are. It can be exhilarating and inspiring, but it's also terrifying because,
Right.
you know, we can get, the world can be a very frightening place out there. So even when we're in normal, you know, we can freak out or react to things that so-called normal people don't, you know, especially people who've experienced trauma.
Yeah.
So that, and there's a real relationship between bipolar episodes and trauma. So if we're seeing the world as a frightening place, and that's our normal, and the doctor said, fine, you're normal now. See, you don't test for depression, you don't test for mania, you're normal. And we're walking around in a much more frightening place where the world is almost like a dark alley at midnight.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But then on the other time, normal is like wow, we can see a Beethoven symphony in our heads,
Yes.
you know, and that the doctors should not try to medicate out of
No,
us. That is
oh
a
my gosh,
part,
I love that part.
that is what and it's not mania, okay?
No, no.
This is not mania. You know, the doctors will say, oh, we don't take our drugs because we're so addicted to our manias. That is total rubbish. Okay, that's a doctor myth. We've got some scientific studies to back that up, believe
Yeah.
me. You know, we see beautiful things in our minds, and yeah, we really do have beautiful minds, and our doctors don't often appreciate it. That's the state we want to be in, where we're this kind of normal, and it's not somebody else's version. It's more frightening, and we've got to learn to deal with that kind of frightening
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah, for sure.
So if we get that realistic view, and as you say, Maggie, it takes us a long time to find.
Oh yeah, I'm still I'm 40 now, and I'm still in that process of figuring out that journey. But I recently, I feel like I'm more accepting of myself, and it's more freeing, and I don't care what others think, and I'm just like,
You're
hey,
way more enlightened at your age than I am.
This is me, and take it or leave it. And even at a softball game the other day, the one of the moms was saying, oh, I've got to go to jury duty, and I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't had to do jury duty because I always put bipolar because I can't handle the courtrooms. And she's all laughing, thinking I was joking that I had bipolar. I'm all, no, I really have bipolar. And she doesn't know how to take it. Like, you know, she's like, huh?
Oh, I got called. I got called for jury duty once.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, you know, I'll do my civic duty. I showed up. But then
Can't handle it.
Yeah. You know, if it was a 1 or 2 day trial, I thought maybe I can take it. They said this is going to be a 4-week trial. And I nearly broke down into tears because sometimes, you know, you really deceive yourself into thinking you're normal, that you can handle, and then it's like a 4-week trial. I'm going to be in a dark room.
Yeah.
I'll even have to ask permission to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I can't even get up and stretch my legs.
Yeah, well, I was already thinking like 15 steps ahead. I'm going, I can't get up, get dressed, drive on the freeway, find this stupid courtroom, find where to check in. All these things build up massive anxieties. I'm like, no, I'm not going to put myself through that.
I was practically crying when I told the judge my story, and thank God he understood.
Yeah,
because
like, you're done.
Because he was telling other people, you know, nope, you know.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's a journey. It's a process.
It's a process. It takes time. So if you're new to the illness, don't take normal for granted. Do what your doctors tell you at the early stages of the illness, because probably you're not in shape to figure it all out. You need to get stable. Okay?
Oh yeah.
But then the long learning process begins.
Definitely, and we can talk about that learning process in another video. That's a
that's a good one. See, she comes up with ideas. She's got a beautiful bipolar mind. Yeah.
And then we got the genius going in depth right here.
Right, and we got the life enhancer right here. And speaking of that, okay, where's your book?
My book's here, and yours is there.
Yeah, and see, we hold it up and
upside down. Yeah, and this is mine called Runaway Mind, and my own race with bipolar disorder, and about my own personal journey and what I went through. And this is John's.
This is not just up and down, and it's about a lot of stuff we've just been talking about.
Totally.
And there's going to be more books in the series on this. This is the Bipolar Expert series, so check that out at Amazon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and get on our email lists.
And it's a really easy book to read too. It's not where it's like Brainiac where you don't understand anything. He really pulls it all apart. So I really encourage you to read it. It's awesome.
And read Maggie.
Thank you.
I think we got a wrap.
We'll see you guys. No, I really have bipolar.